Hey, welcome to the FilmFile, the film show for film geeks by film geeks. Hey, and we are back. I'm Lee Ford.
I'm Andy Meakin.
And welcome to the newest episode, in fact, episode 57 of the FilmFile. And who can think?
A year on, and like a year of like not gathering in a room to do this round a table, doing it online, and now for the first time in that year, we're actually seeing each other face to face. Thanks to we're recording this on video. Now it might not all go out on video, but we will take some select chunks so that you can see what we look like on the YouTube channel and maybe through Instagram.
I'm glad I shaved, especially. I had the special 6-week anniversary shave, so I'm glad we did that. But yeah, it's good to see you. It's actually, this is we tried to do it over video very early on, and it didn't prove to work because of the slight sync issues. Right.
Yeah. But Zencastr, who we use, and big shout out to Zencastr because their software has got us through quite a difficult year, and it's been quite handy. I love the system. I can't recommend it enough. And they've been trialing this video recording for a while, but we've said like we should give it a try. But we kept putting it off, and now it's basically here, and we have to use it. So it's like, well, here we go.
Yeah.
And so far, so good. I'm liking it.
So good. Yeah.
So shout out to Zencastr. If you've got a podcast out there and you're wondering how you can remotely record in an excellent way with individual audio tracks and individual video tracks, Zencastr.
So this week's show, well, we've got an action-packed show for you, as well as the news, which Andy will have been trawling the World Wide Web for. We're going to be talking about our deep dive, which is Terminator. Yes, James Cameron's Terminator. We're going to be reviewing News of the World. What else, Andy?
We've also got... Now I have to bring it up on my list because I always get the title of this film wrong because it's quite a long one. We've also got The Map of Tiny Perfect Things, which landed on Amazon this past week, and we have How to Lame Your Dragon. Dragon Rider on Sky.
Okay, and
later.
And I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on Greenland, and of course, we'll be looking back over last week's WandaVision. So before we start, Andy, he's been scouring the World Wide Web to find you all the latest. I'll start that again. We've been scouring the World Wide Web. No, he hasn't. Andy has. Andy's been scouring the World Wide Web to bring you the latest news, change of dates, in this segment we gladly call the news.
I need to go on to a soapbox moment spinning off from this.
I'm ready.
Because this whole story breaking resulted in the fans lashing out at co-stars and people from everything Whedon has worked on since, demanding that they say something. Yes, the fandom are bullying people for not sharing their experiences in a public forum. David Boreanaz was continuously harassed last week about his silence over the whole thing. And when he finally spoke up to say that he never actually encountered that kind of experience himself, but he fully supports Carpenter, the fans were ready to lambast his delay in speaking out, to say that he was obviously complicit because he didn't encounter it, so he must have been part of it, until Carpenter herself posted in reply to thank him for the support that he's done publicly and in private. And that's the thing. These people are still supporting Charisma Carpenter in private because they know each other. They get on with each other. They've known each other for years. They don't need you to be involved in that conversation. Stop thinking that as a fan, you must be part and parcel of every conversation that goes on between celebrities behind closed doors. They don't need to make it public. They're supporting them. And stop being bullies yourselves and stop harassing people. That's the most annoying thing about toxic fandom at the moment, is that the fans think that they deserve some kind of information. And you don't. You don't need to go. You don't need to get
absolutely spot on, Andy.
You don't need to get Seth Green involved because he was on a few episodes. You don't need to go and talk to all the members of the Avengers cast. We don't need to know what their experiences are unless they want to share them. So that's my soapbox moment for this week. I know that each week we tend to be having a soapbox moment, but this week it is the toxic fandoms, wouldn't you?
Well, I'll go first. Because I love both actors. Donald Glover and Phoebe Waller-Bridge are to play Mr. and Mrs. Smith in a TV adaptation. So you remember that it was Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. It was Brad Pitt and Angelina. I'll start again. It was Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Angelina Jolie. It was Brad. Why can't I say that name? It's suddenly gone. It's because I'm looking at a picture of Phoebe Waller-Bridge and going, "That's not Angelina Jolie." You remember that the movie starred Brad Pitt and. You remember that the movie starred Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Okay.
By the way, this is the first time that you're seeing this, but I always have things that I'm fidgeting with while we're recording.
All right. Oh, that's okay.
I always have to have like fidget spinners or me Funko Pops that I'll be playing with while we're talking.
They're just out of eye level, so I was wondering what you were doing. If you've enjoyed the show so far, and there's really no reason why you shouldn't be, come on. It's action-packed, it's full of geek news, and it's free. Then please hit the subscribe button, because why not? Also, leave a review, because we want to read your thoughts about what we're doing, because we want to be told nice things. Hey, this is the season for... No, it's not. It's not a season for goodwill. I was trying to think of Valentine's Day. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do so at...
over on Twitter at FilmFile UK. You can also catch us on Instagram, FilmFile UK, or you can email us, podcast@filmfile.uk.
So if you are a regular to this show, and hi, good to see you again, then you know this portion of the program, we do a deep dive. This week, we are looking at the 1984 American science fiction film that brought director James Cameron to the forefront of being probably the world's biggest action director. It starred Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton, and of course that film is The Terminator. So, set in 1984 Los Angeles, a cyborg assassin known as a Terminator arrives back from the year 2029, where mankind is on the brink of extinction. The Terminator's plan is to come back in time and kill a woman called Sarah Connor, whose son, it turns out, will be what? Is a freedom fighter? Is what?
The resistance leader.
Whose son will lead the resistance against the Terminators. It starred a very young Arnold Schwarzenegger, who at that point wasn't the big star that he turned out to be. It launched the career of James Cameron. And it's still a film that set the standard for science fiction films as we know them today, because it was bold, it was interesting, it was non-stop, and it was a film that was done on a particularly low budget. Andy, you've watched it recently.
Around $6 million.
Around $6 million. Yes. This wasn't a big movie. You've watched it recently, and has it held up?
Yes, I go back and rewatch this. This is one of my every year I will watch The Terminator. I absolutely love the first two films. And the first film in particular, I think, is the better of the two films. The Terminator 2, don't get me wrong, it's polished, it looks great, the effects are a lot better. But this first one is dark, it's gritty, it's dirty, and it works because of it. This time that I rewatched it, I was sat with my daughter, who's never experienced any of the Terminator brand. She's not watched any of those more recent films. She's not watched any of them. But she was sat in the room when I put on the first film, and she sat and watched it. So we watched Terminator 2 as well today. And seeing her reacting to it, and does it stand up? Well, to me, the effects still stand up. The stop motion, I'm still captivated by. The design of the Terminator still looks great. The modelled shots of the future war still look great. But her perspective was completely different. That's not completely different. She got that it's dated technology, but she thought that it looked like, particularly the stop motion, looked a bit silly. It didn't quite work for her because we live in an age where even Terminator 2, which is itself 20 years old, 20, maybe 30 years, isn't it?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, it's 1984 it came out, yeah.
Oh, that's when you realise how old you actually are. When
I saw it in the cinema.
you lose a
I
decade off
took my
things.
kid's sister to see it in the cinema.
But rewatching it, yes, it still stands up through my nostalgic glasses. But for a new audience, I can see why the first film could be a hard sell for them, because some of the effects work is still a bit ropey. And I think Terminator 2 for a new audience is a better kind of introduction to the series,
Right.
because
Yeah, I can see
it's
that.
a lot more polished. It's visually more spectacular, and it plays basically the same story. But it's a film that I appreciate and I love, because I remember seeing it when I was young, and I remember being wowed by the design work of it. The design of the Terminator by the great Stan Winston was such an iconic design that basic design hasn't really changed throughout the films, and there's no reason for it to. And the stop motion effects, like I say, they look a bit ropey to a modern audience, but Gene Warren did a pretty good job with the limited budget that they had to work on this.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to those heady days of 1984. Schwarzenegger had only really been seen and exploded onto the screen in Conan. Cameron had only directed Piranha 2: The Spawning, and before that was an effects guy for Roger Corman. And apparently the story is that while directing in Rome Piranha 2, Cameron fell ill, had a dream about a metallic torso holding kitchen knives, dragging itself from an explosion. He was inspired by director John Carpenter, who'd made the slasher film Halloween, to make a low-budget movie and use the dream basically as a launching pad to write this slasher style. Cameron's agent apparently disliked the early concept of the horror film, requested he work on something else. And after this, Cameron, being the kind of director he is, dismissed his agent. And he went around with a couple of other writers and some friends, and he drew inspiration from, of all things, The Outer Limits, which there was kind of a legal complication with the writer Harlan Ellison, I remember, but that's a story for another time. Mad Max 2, The Driver, which was big in 1978, and he got it down to this strong, streamlined, non-stop action movie. Originally, they wanted to cast either Mel Gibson for the role. Sylvester Stallone was mentioned, but the role looked as though it was going to land on the desk of Lance Henriksen. Yep, Lance Henriksen, who plays a tiny role as a cop in there and played a bigger role in Aliens, again directed by James Cameron, was the original choice. And the idea that he was going to be more of an infiltration unit as a cyborg, as opposed to the unstoppable being that he became. And there was some controversy when Schwarzenegger was cast, because he shouldn't have worked. He's supposed to be this infiltration unit, but there's no way you can't spot a guy like Arnold. But they stuck with it, and that's the beauty of cinema, and that's the beauty of just perfect casting. And I always remember reading that Schwarzenegger played it like a shark, and the way that his head turns and the eyes follow was always the thing that made this character iconic. And now you can't imagine Terminator without Schwarzenegger.
Now, whilst I say that the effects work don't necessarily stand up today for a modern audience, the storyline still stands up. And my daughter picked up on all the little touches within the story. She found amusement when it's supposed to be amusing. When, like, the landlord of the flat is like, "What, have you got a dead cat in there?" And he scrolls through all the different options. She chuckled. She got what was going on. And she also got the little nod backs in the following film as well. Things like him saying, "I'll be back," again, when he's leaving the lift shaft to go and like get past the cops and find a way for them to get out the building. As soon as he said that, he's like, "Is he going to drive a car through the building?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, he is, but I'll let you discover it." But she was also picking up, like asking throughout it, is like, yeah, on the first film, it's like, so what happens if this? How could this happen? It's like, well, watch. How can you kill an unkillable machine? Watch. So she was getting caught up in the stories that went along. And then when it came to the second one, now, this is one thing that I was envious of her for, is that Terminator 2, when it came out for us, we already had it advertised to us that Arnie was going to be playing the good guy this time, that there was going to be a more menacing Terminator. And it makes that whole initial 30 minutes, which is basically mirroring the first 30 minutes of the original film, kind of pointless, because it plays the same way that you think that Arnie is a bad Terminator out to kill, and here's this human-looking person trying to also track him down and being nice and like, hey, have you seen this kid? Oh, he's a lovely boy. And, you know, he's genuinely charming. And then it flips at the get down scene. She wasn't aware of that. So as it's building up to that, she's like, how come this Terminator's not killing everyone? Don't they normally kill everyone? I was like, oh, well, because it's a crowded mall, so it wouldn't want to cause attention to itself. But no, she kind of cottoned on that something wasn't quite right, but it was only when it got to that confrontation in the corridor and he tells John to get down that it twigged with her. And seeing her reaction at that point, it was like, that's what we should have had. That's what we should have had, but the marketing let it down. Marvelous film. Yeah. But
I can actually revisit it, number 2, because I've all my love has always been for the original, for the first Terminator, and not that I dislike in any way Terminator 2, but if I go back and watch one, then the one I'll go back and watch is always Terminator.
Yeah, I mean, the first film for me is always the stronger one. It's the same with Alien and Aliens. I love Aliens, but I prefer Alien. And with Terminator 1 and 2, Terminator 2 was just a copy of the first film with better effects. And so the original will always be closer to me as well. Closer to me, heart, completely. I love time travel films. I love the fact that this is a time travel film that creates its own paradox. I love that it leaves it messing with my head, and I love that it doesn't try to describe it. It even just says, that's tech stuff. It just says, disregard it. Yeah, we know that it's complicated. Don't think too much on it. And I love the framing of the ending. I love that photograph that he's been carrying throughout. You get to see where that photograph was taken, because it's commented when, like, he says that, like, he always wondered what she was thinking, and she was thinking of him at the time. And there's those little touches that show what a creative genius, story-wise, James Cameron could actually be.
Yeah,
and he really set out his stall in this film. He set out what he could do with action, what he could do with any budget that he's given, but also what he can do to make you care about characters in a situation, because you do genuinely care about these characters.
Absolutely. And let's not forget, I mean, we talked a lot about Arnie, but Linda Hamilton just sells it all the way through. She goes from somebody who's complete innocent, a damsel in distress, one might say, to being this hardened woman in the face of her own impending doom and her own impending destiny, and plays it beautifully. And Michael Biehn just steals the entire film for me. Fantastic sort of second banana roll, and he makes it work. He brings humility and humanity to somebody who's forgotten to be human at times. And there's all those clever little interplays within the script about what it means to be human. And I don't think Cameron's ever done anything better than this script-wise, because the film is just relentless, and it works on every level. It's visceral, it's action-packed, just the way that the film never stops, even to give away huge amounts of exposition. They do it during a car chase, or they do it during a piece of action. The film is consistently running, moving forward, and it's still fantastic. And probably the fact that there is less money behind it than there is in his future work, but the film did establish both Arnie and Cameron as being one being the action director for a generation, and the other one just being such a huge international star. And it's a fantastic effort, and holds up so well to today.